Brilliant, yeah. Excellent. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rumbi from Tulia, and we're an organization based in the United Kingdom. We educate, empower, and bring about restoration to migrants who are living in the UK. We provide advice in family law and immigration law, and also then work collaboratively with other professionals to provide other support around those two key areas. So our brand pillars are to educate, empower, and bring about restoration. And we help refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants to recover from the impact of migration, loss, relationship breakdown, and all the other issues that come with migration. We educate individuals and our corporate partners in how to access justice, resources, and services to improve migrant integration into society. And we empower. We bring about restoration and empowerment. So those are our three brand pillars, and you can follow us on Facebook, Tulia. We were formally registered as Migrant Family Support, but we rebranded last year and are called Tulia now. So today we are talking about co-parenting and and boundaries in that area. So we do a lot of family law work, and so we help families to deal with the full aftermath of relationship breakdown, empowering them and helping families to have to work together. And we always believe that, you know, parents get divorced, but not the children. No one ever divorces children. And when the elephants fight, it's usually the grass that suffers. So one of the things we try and do is to help families to go through these things in a good way, in a manner that can still promote a healthy mental and physical health of the children, and to put the best interests of the children at the center of everything. And we've developed our content around Christian principles and critical thinking skills, which are tailored towards the problems and the challenges that people, especially in the diaspora where we're based, face without the support network of family and other social support that people would have in their countries of origin. So today we are really honored and blessed to have Dr. Justice Marwisa, who's going to be leading this session. A lot of experience over the years when it comes to working with people, enabling them to find meaning and well-being. And he holds a doctorate degree in transformational leadership and is a certified Christian counselor. And we've been working with him since 2020. Yes, since COVID started, and he's been such a blessing to us and to so many people who we serve here in England. And indeed, he helps people across the world, China, USA, Australia, New Zealand, wherever there are people, he's there, and Zimbabwe. So I'm going to hand over to Doc, or let me just stop sharing my screen and hand over to you. Thank you so much, Doc, and welcome to everyone who's joined us so far.
All right, thank you, Ruby. It's such a pleasure for myself and my organization to be working with Tulia. It has been an amazing journey that we have walked together, and I am grateful to be facilitating this session. And our focus is on, co-parenting. And what I thought I should do is for us to maybe just have a conversation with people. So we encourage people to send in questions, comments, and we have a conversation around co-parenting. And what I would do is to just briefly talk a little bit about parenting and co-parenting, and then I'll just open it up so that I can maybe address areas of concerns which people will be having. In my line of work, having worked with a lot of people for a lot of time in the area of family, one of the things that I've observed, like what Patrick Molly once said, in general, as we focus on corporate success, time with our children who need us the most and whom we love the most usually goes into remission, resulting in broken relationships with them. We end up regretting that we never got to know our children. And by the time we want to know them, what happens is this: they would actually have grown up and they are leaving home. And unfortunately, with divorce, which is the statistics are actually high at the moment, you will notice that the raising of children is actually becoming much more complicated, because raising of children in a normal home where there is, by normal I mean where the parents are together, it's not easy. And now add to that the fact that parents have divorced, it becomes even harder. So I want us to, have our discussion today, around this aspect of co-parenting, but where we can actually begin from in my just maybe 10 minutes or so of our presentation, just look at the important definitions which can then help us in our discussion. So the first definition is something that is known as co-parenting itself. Then I will look at a number of other definitions. But maybe before I look at parenting, I can even address, why we should actually even talk about parenting. So why talk about parenting? I normally say to people, reality of life is this, friends, that parenting is perhaps the most important job in the world. And it is actually a job that is meant to cut across the whole spectrum of mankind, irrespective of their social, economic, racial, religious, political, or any other considerations. The parenting is actually such an important, responsibility. Unfortunately, what happens is this: despite that importance, it is an area which is one of the least prepared for. Many of us, we are parents by default. We don't go for training to become parents in any way. And so it makes the job of parenting very complicated. But why, parenting? What is parenting? Just looking at the definitions, which I want us to focus on. Let's begin with if people are together, the parenting really is a role. What is it? What is parenting itself? So the definition that I've liked the most regarding parenting is one that is given by Dr. Ted Tripp. I like this one. Here is what he says. He says, parenting is the process, and this is very important. He says it is the process of promoting and supporting the physical, this is very important, the physical, the social, the emotional, the behavioral, the intellectual, and spiritual development of a child from infants to adulthood. So it's a very important definition. We are developing, a young person from, being a child to an adult in all these 6 areas that he mentions here: physically, socially, emotionally, behaviorally, intellectually, and spiritually. So that's what parenting is all about. So we are meant to be developing a young person so that when they grow up and become an adult, they become what is known as a responsible adult. And having said that, then because of challenges that parents can have, husband and wife can have, or if there is no marriage between couples or partners, in general, we can actually have the breaking down of a relationship. So there can be divorce. Then when that happens, we then begin to have these many other definitions that are there. I was just doing a quick research. I've got more than 5 or so definitions. The first one is co-parenting, and it's important for us to take note of these definitions. So what is co-parenting? It is a post-divorce parenting arrangement. So it's a parenting arrangement in which both parents continue to jointly participate in their child's upbringing and activities. So it involves a substantial amount of interaction between the parents, both in public and in private. They will be talking together. So that is co-parenting. It is a post-divorce parenting arrangement or a post-relationship parenting arrangement in which both parents continue to jointly participate in the activities of the child. All right, so that's a definition there for you. But we then also have other definitions that begin to kick in. One that I liked was this one: parallel parenting. Parallel parenting. So what is this? So this is a parenting model, and it's important for us to take note of this. So this is a parenting model that allows parents, and it's important for us to take note of this, that allows parents to spend time with their children independently in order to minimize the risk that their hostile relationship will be harmful to their children. So it's a form of co-parenting, but the parents realize that their relationship is hostile. And because their relationship is hostile, they will minimize the time they will spend with their child independently in order to then have this arrangement to reduce hostility. So it allows the parents to spend time with their children independently in order to minimize. So the dad spends time with the son, the mother spends time with the son, and here these two are not interacting because there is hostility. So it's called parallel parenting. So it's a form of co-parenting, but it's important for us to take note of that. Then another definition which is important, which I want to give, is what is known as competitive parenting. So competitive parenting is a parenting style in which parents, they compare themselves against the parenting styles of others. So they're looking at the parenting styles of others and they try to compete to outdo what other people are doing. And if it is a case where the parents are divorced, it becomes what is known as competitive co-parenting. And when it is competitive co-parenting, then one parent is undermining the other in the presence of the child, or they are joking, for control of the child. So competitive co-parenting is they are looking at each other, they are competing for the attention of the child, they're joking for control, and it becomes a competition between these adults over the child. That is competitive parenting. It doesn't end there. There's also another one, definition that is interesting as people compete. It's then defined as what they call Disneyland parenting from Disney. So it's Disneyland parenting. So what is it? So this is a style of parenting where a non-custodial parent who indulges his or her child with gifts and good times during visitation and leaves most all disciplinary responsibilities to the other person. So they are there to just present this, goodly, side. They don't do any discipline. They leave the child thinking that the other parent, the one who is, custody, is bad, is the evil one. And so we call it Disneyland parenting. So there are several types of parenting methods, which I've just shared here. So we defined, what parenting is. We then looked at co-parenting. We then looked at, parallel parenting. We then looked at competitive parenting. We then looked at competitive co-parenting, and finally, Disneyland parenting. So there are these 5 or 6 types of parenting. Let me tell you, before I open this up, because I wanted this to be a discussion, there's a lot that I can actually present, but I thought maybe it might be good for us to have a discussion, to talk, hear, the challenges we have, and see how we can actually help one another to navigate from the experiences that I've had. The issue is this, friends. In all these things that will be happening as adults are fighting one another or competing against each other, sometimes, like what Rumbi was saying, in fact, if I say sometimes I'm actually understating. In many cases, it is the child who is bearing the brunt of the fights. So the child is caught in the middle. They don't understand what is happening. The child suffers. And statistics indicate that when we don't do our job well as parents, actually, instead of actually promoting our child, their growth, their development into this responsible adult, we actually raise a wounded individual who most likely, when they also grow up, they will begin to hurt others. And so we can have a place where the person who is supposed to be in charge of the growth of a child actually abdicating their roles, their responsibilities, and in fact cause pain and harm to the child, which is very sad. So I thought maybe I can just introduce this and then we can have a discussion. There's a lot to share, but I wanted this to be relevant to where we are. And it would be good to hear from us as we start. Maybe before I give you, Rumbi, to talk about any questions. The end result, what I want you to take note of, friends, when we don't raise children well, and our children grow up as wounded people, it will come back to bite on us. I normally talk of what is known as a destination sickness as I close my presentation. What is known as destination sickness. I always tell people this. This is a syndrome of a person who has actually arrived and then they discover they are nowhere. So we are adults. We neglect children. We focus on ourselves and on just making sure that we enjoy life at the expense of our children. What happens is this: we arrive at a place which we thought this was going to be a good place for us. We then discover, as we grow older, that we're actually nowhere. So these are people who have achieved their goals and find that they're not what they anticipated them to be. They suffer the disillusionments of promises that cease to excite. They become disillusioned. Because let me tell you, as we grow older, when you have not developed a relationship with your children, these children will not be able to be able to look after you or to develop a relationship with you, because at some point in time, you may want to also depend on children as you grow older. It is a fact. So they suffer the disillusionments of promises that cease to excite. They've all things money can buy sometimes, but find decreasing satisfaction in all they have. They are where they've always wanted to be, having everything that they've wanted to have, but not wanting anything that they've got. These are people who have become a while of a success downtown, but here this a pathetic failure at home. They are a big shot with the boys and girls, as we normally say in the office, but they are a pathetic failure at home. They are big phone at home. They are status symbol in society, and they're fake with the family. They are hitting the marketplace, and they're disaster at home. They climb that corporate ladder of success, hear this while their family is crumbling, and then at the end of it all, they wonder what was life all about. Was they would have failed where it mattered the most, actually at home. And it's a bad place to be. Rumbi, at that point, I think we can have a discussion.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to just ask anyone who has any comments or any questions or any particular issues that you want to ask. You can either post in the chat as a comment, or if you raise your hand, then I can unmute and allow you to talk, so that you can raise any questions or any issues that are there. I think we've already got one which will start us off. That is there any definition for a parent who abdicates their parenting responsibilities in various ways?
Thank you. That's a good one. So there could be, in my view, maybe they could fit under any of these definitions. Just depends on the level of responsibility. Maybe it could be parenting, where they are at some point in time, working with the child in a way. In general, you can have such a scenario. But where somebody is totally uninvolved, I don't have the that name. Maybe I will actually search for that, but I don't know if it will be interesting if others on the platform know that. Was in general, we just say that that person is called an absent parent. That's the general term that we use. I'm not sure, apart from that term, whether there's another specific term, I'm not sure. But they may just fit the issue of being just referred as an absent, parent. That's, but it might fit, part of parenting and the like. But maybe absent is the best term to use.
Yeah. And that question, I think probably maybe there is no definition, but there are parents who do abdicate various responsibilities in various ways. And I think leading on from that question as well, someone asked a question about how do you deal with a parent who refuses to discipline a child. We have different methods on discipline, but we can't seem to back each other up. And the child now plays one parent off the other. And how can we work around this? So discipline.
Yeah, so that one is always a difficult one. Let me begin with parents who are together. So for parents who are together, obviously the way of doing it is to ensure that you work on communicating know what you want when it comes to discipline. So communication becomes very important. And here, this, you set the standards that you want. You agree who is supposed to discipline. Is it the mother? Is the father? What kind of discipline should it be? And there's agreement. But when there is now co-parenting, it becomes very difficult. If it is co-parenting, when the relationship between the exes is cordial, then it's easier. Again, you discuss, it might not be as difficult. But in general, when there is no a good relationship, that's when the other person now begins to play the Disneyland parenting that we're talking about. And in general, parents who are normally not involved, or the parent is not normally involved when it comes to staying with each other, is the one who compensates. So it's a compensation. You compensate by, not disciplining, because you are trying to make the child love you. You're trying to make the child, benefit from whatever time that you have, so that they have good memories, which is not necessarily good for the child. What can you do as the spouse? The issue is as the ex. The issue is all you can try to do is to communicate what the potential challenges are. If the person cannot listen to you, if your ex cannot listen to you, which is probably normal, you may want to look at whoever could be influential on his side to explain in terms of the impact of what he is doing on the child. So that is something that is very important. If there's no one else to do that, for me, what I've seen as others have handled this is for the person, for the parent who is responsible, to play their part in terms of disciplining. It is something that is difficult, but you do your best in disciplining, because you are the one who is actually looking after the child, because the one who is custody in general is the one who realizes that the other person does not want to discipline in many cases. So you do your part, you play your part, you do the best that you can to discipline, but the discipline must always be measured, must be out of love, not when one is angry. We normally say there are ways in which you discipline in a manner that makes the child still love you. It's not easy when the other parent is complicating things, but you just need to continue to play your part. Eventually, from what I've observed, when you continue to do what is right, eventually the child will know where true love is. It's not like the child does not know. The child will know. Yes, they can be a child, but as they continue to receive the discipline out of love, which is measured, which is timely, with some explanation. We normally say to people, don't discipline if you are not going to use discipline together with communication. They must go hand in hand. You discipline, but you communicate the reason behind the discipline. So you continue to do that. It's not easy, but you do your part. That was a very good question. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think doing your part, because you can't ever control another person, as you've said. You can try and communicate, try and influence, but when you're hitting against a brick wall, you can do your part. And I think just to add on to that as well is where you feel perhaps that the other parent is maybe the discipline, not where they're not disciplining, but where you may not agree on the method, where perhaps sometimes you feel it's bordering on abuse, or it's not discipline with communication, or it's not discipline in love. Sometimes you can have a conflict about how to raise a child. And I know that the courts are encourage people to resolve their own differences, encourage people to communicate, but where sometimes you fail to communicate completely, there is an option for you to go before a judge, to be able to get a judge to make a decision. So you can make an application that's called, it's a child arrangements order, and it's a specific issue. So sometimes you may have a specific issue which you as parents are not agreeing on, and you've tried everything and it's failed. And sometimes it's issues like which school a child should go to, because I know there are some parents who resort to sending their children to schools out of the country, out of like the UK. Some parents choose to educate their children in Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Nigeria, for varying reasons. Some is discipline, some it's the fact that you can get private school education, which is slightly cheaper, and so they prefer, but they don't agree. So with situations like that, you can take that matter before a judge and have a judge to make a decision when they weigh out the best interest of the child, they weigh out the evidence, they weigh out all the varying issues that you're bringing across. So sometimes when there's that, where you cannot agree and you feel that it's not in the best interest of the child, you do always have that resort. It's a last resort. I wouldn't say it's a first resort, but it's an option that's available.
Mm. Yeah, I just want to add, Rumbi, and say that, you know, what is always said sometimes, well, some of us, we have the privilege of then working with children who are hurting. Some of them are now adults. What is very sad is that as we fight as parents, reality is we become oblivious to the fact that the child is actually hurting. And children hurt so much, such that when you then hear their stories, these things, they actually follow them into their adulthood. And we normally say that the child begets the adult, and it's actually reality. They, you know, get to a place where they are adults and they are so wounded, and it's really sad. And hear this, they then abuse others. So I just thought it's good to mention that, because we can actually do something as adults. If we are having challenges with one another, let's find ways, let's look for professionals to actually make us sit down and discuss our issues so that we promote the next generation, because that is something that is.
Yeah.
I thought I should just comment on that.
Thank you. True. Yeah, that's very true. The children hurt, and like you said, the child begets the adult. So we then have cycles and generational patterns that start from that. So that's so important. And I think mediation is really a very important tool to use when you can't agree. Mediation can help you to reach a place where you are both, where you're both heard as parents, and then you get help to resolve some of the differences. We've got two questions. I think we've got a comment from Kath, which is that if you've developed a good relationship with your child as they're growing up and they know that you have their best interests at heart, it is so much easier to discipline them. That's very true. Thank you for that. And a question that came into the inbox was about finances. What if the other parent refuses to share finances equally, but wants their rights? Is that okay?
Obviously, it's not okay. And you know what? The issue is this. What's interesting is, as adults, this is something that has baffled me. I've actually done a study on a number of things around what is known as attitudes. The word attitude is very powerful. And one of the things that I've discovered is that an attitude is actually an evaluation that we make as people towards what is known as an attitude object. So we have our own evaluations which we make. And these evaluations in general, they have 3 dimensions. One is the behavioral aspect. The other one is the emotional aspect. We make these judgments on the basis of the behaviors of, the attitude object, the emotions we have towards them. And then the third aspect is issue to do with, the cognitive aspect, the way we think. So the attitudes people have, let me tell you, will surprise you. Where you have a child and you still think that the child, you must not pay, for their upkeep. And yet you want the right to, to have the child, around you and things like that. It's an attitude issue. And when you look at it, that attitude is based on the experiences that make you to not think properly, not to feel properly, and not to behave properly, based on what you went through. So some of the people that were actually saying that they have a problem, these problems, why they're not doing this, when you then look back at their childhood, what they've gone through, you'll be surprised they are only just, becoming, if you can call it selfish, whatever it is. It's because of where they're coming from. They have these attitudes coming back from, or going back from how they were growing. How they were abused, how they were neglected, whatever it was, it formulated their attitudes. So that's what they know. And so and the issue is this, when you are blinded, let me tell you, when you are blinded, even if it appears obvious to another person that you gave birth to this child, you should just look after the child. It's obvious. It's clear to anyone that this is something that must be done. Let me tell you, because there is darkness in you, you are blinded, you can't see it. So that is what we actually have as a problem. And so many of us who are actually becoming responsible were saying, we're actually surprised, it shocks us. But why would somebody give me a child and does not even want to look after the child? And they want their rights. Let me tell you, it's because of the blind, the blindness of the heart. So they have attitudes which are coming from where you actually don't know. That's why I'm saying that if we're not careful, if we don't raise the children well, if we don't co-parent well, our children will also begin to develop attitudes that will blind them to, to behavior patterns, which will also make them harm their children or hurt other people. And it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it becomes a vicious cycle. And I think there's a comment here in the chat which came anonymously, that I think our selfishness and pride causes us to be acrimonious. Why should one parent think another has to suffer and look after the children financially, and then they still need to get the benefit of being a child, of being a parent? I remember in family law, when we did maintenance with, I remember Professor Ncube, he always used to say, there's no pleasure without responsibility. So there comes responsibility with being a parent, and it's, that is what it should be. But sadly, some people will go to whatever length they can to avoid their responsibilities. But as you said, it baffles other people, but there are people like that, unfortunately, which is very sad.
And the issue is this, they can't see, it's a vicious cycle. And they can't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Kath, you've got your hand up. Yeah.
Thank you, Rumbi. Yeah, I was just going to say, if we don't parent well or even co-parent well or give our children appropriate attention, there is a danger that they can lean towards rebellious or deviant behaviour because they're looking for any kind of attention. So sadly, that may even be gangs or, promiscuous behavior or many other kinds of behavior, just because they are simply looking for any kind of attention if they have been neglected or not given appropriate attention by their parents.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And that ties in as well with something in the comments that someone said it's good to self-introspect because childhood hurts have a way of coming out even if they've never been dealt with. And absent parents and acrimony, like you said, can come out in promiscuous behavior, self-harming, gangs, all of these issues. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got another question as well from in the chat, which is that it's a different issue now. I think when is the right time to introduce new partners? I'm not comfortable with my children playing happy families with him and his girlfriend. It makes me angry and I can't get past it, to be honest. The children even call her mommy. And then there's another question, which is, how do I separate my hatred for my ex with my love for my children?
I like that. And those questions, in my view, they are very much, closely related. Hear this, when the relationship has broken down, the thing that is very important is for you to work on yourself. And you need to deal with the fact that you might have wanted the relationship to continue. It's a fact. The relationship is no longer there. The person may decide to date. It is something that is outside your control. What I normally encourage people is to work on themselves. Deal with your pain. Deal with the pain of betrayal. Work on yourself. Seek counsel if you can. Work on forgiveness. Deal with your bitterness. And hear this, release your ex to be able to do what they want. In terms of them then introducing, so maybe whilst I'm still there, let me just deal with the hatred issue. So your hatred issue, again, your hatred issue is because probably there is unfinished business. It's a fact. The relationship may not have ended well. They may have been issues to do with things that were done to you that, again, were painful to you and the like. So there's unfinished business. Again, the secret is for you to work on yourself, deal with bitterness, get to a place where you forgive. We normally say forgiveness is, this is commonly said, it is actually setting a prisoner free and then realize that you were actually that prisoner. So deal with that. In terms of introducing, your ex introducing children, his children to the new lady, again, it's a difficult one for you because the person will be called the baby. And you are saying to yourself, but I'm the mother. So why should that person be called man? Again, it's just working. In my view is I normally say to people, work on your self-image, yourself as an individual. You can't control what the other person wants to do. You can't. And as long as you are going to, fight for something that is outside your control, you are setting yourself up for failure. Unless there is some legal way, something that is legal or illegal that the person is doing. I don't know, maybe Rumbi, you may want to help us here. Is it illegal for children to call maybe to the new wife? Is there anything in our laws? So it's not legal. It's not illegal. So it's quite legal. So the issue is this: you will always set yourself for failure if that is going to bother you. Because it is outside your control. So you need to work on yourself. Painful as it is, but it is the reality. You will need to release the right of you only being called mama, and realize that somebody else may also be called mama. It's the way things are.
That's hard. But it's the reality, isn't it?
That is the reality.
It's the reality.
I wish there was any other way of putting it across, which is easier. I wish there was, but the reality is that is the reality. And so if it is going to bother you, and here this friends, let me share something that I've discovered, in working with people. Reality, if your ex realizes that there's something that is bothering you about any aspect, whether it is co-parenting or whatever it is that can come out to bother you, they will use it to make sure that you even feel more, more pain. That's the sad thing.
That's the sad thing, isn't it? Yeah. And it's like putting a screw in to make it even hurt more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
and it's said, unfortunately, it's said, that's the human nature. I normally say relationships of love or benefit, when they fail, they normally almost always, they tend to become relationships of hatred.
Yeah. There's a thin line between love and hate.
Oh,
so
you will be shocked.
Yeah.
That's why I like the honest person that was put across by somebody who said, what if I hate my ex? I hate it, because it's reality. And thank you for being honest. You just need to work on yourself.
Yeah, that's good. And I think similarly, we've got a flip side, another question that came. We've got quite a few questions, which is really good. On the flip side, someone is saying, how can I protect my girl child? My ex is promiscuous. She brings so many men around and exposes my children to her boyfriends, one after the other.
Yeah,
and I'm worried about my children being abused. How can I co-parent with such a person?
My take is take a legal route. If you feel that your child will be unsafe, I think it's always good to have, your heads of arguments, properly, drafted, so that you actually get to a place where you say it's actually dangerous for the child to be in the custody of this person, even to visit. I'm not sure, Rumbi, you are probably more qualified to talk about that. What can be done?
I think it's difficult, isn't it, to define promiscuity. It can be an opinion that you feel that she's promiscuous because she's had several different partners. And then again, it's difficult to prove that the children are unsafe, because it can then be an issue of you think that these people could possibly abuse your child. So it's difficult to prove legally, to say she's had too many partners. They'll say, so what? That's not it's not a crime again. People can choose to
that's really painful, eh?
Yeah. I think it's just the same as someone calling your mommy to someone else. So
it's
painful because you might be feeling it and thinking that this is not safe, but how do you prove that that man, unless you know that they've got a history of, in England you can ask for, like, as a woman, if you're dating somebody, you can look into their history of domestic violence. It's called Clare's Law, where you can actually ask for their background so that you can know perhaps if they're, if they've got a history of domestic violence, or if they're on the register as a sexual offender. So if you know that somebody is a pedophile and you are able to show that and to know that, because it's information that you can access, then definitely you can protect your children, because she wouldn't be allowed to live with someone who's a risk to children. So there has to be more than a suspicion, and there has to be so there is actually protection, especially where there's proof. But on suspicion, unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to. But that's that there is a legal route for that.
So for me then, what it means is you, who is the responsible parent, you must continue to teach your child what is sexual abuse, for example. Tell the child you must not allow people to touch you here and there and there. This constitutes abuse. You need to actually communicate with your child, and also let your child know that if anyone ever attempts to do this and this and this, this is something that you must report. So you take it, as your responsibility to actually then teach your child. So, but I can imagine the pain, that one can have as a parent, to see that their child is actually, potentially going to be exposed. That is very painful.
Very, yeah. I've got some interesting comments as well here that someone says a comment on new partner. I have a perpetual screw then. My ex's new partner is my manager at work.
Hey.
It threw me off for a bit. They don't know that I know who their new partner is. The odds of that are like, they are a monitoring spirit and a laughing emoji. It's like, I can't get rid of my ex. We don't co-parent, but I've resolved to parallel parent as my ex believes their way of parenting is the blueprint. So thank you for that. Yeah. So that's really challenging. And
I can imagine.
Yeah. And somebody else says, so in other words, someone can marry or engage with before divorce is final. Isn't there a law against that? I think maybe that's reference to new partners. But you can have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You can't get married again because that's bigamy, which is a crime. So I think when we're making reference to partners, we're talking about having a girlfriend or a boyfriend. So before a divorce is final, yes, you can get into a new relationship. There isn't a law against that. But if you get married, then there's a law against it. But you can get engaged, because getting engaged is just a promise to marry. It's not an actual marriage. So I hope that's answered that as well. And then another comment is just, why are people unable to separate issues when divorcing? Children have not done anything wrong to deserve that. And that's true. That's really true. And there's another comment here about, let me just go up. I've looked at it in a positive manner. It's a chance for my children to see two adults working together in harmony. That's true. And running a home successfully. It's unfortunate it's not with me, but it is what it is. So with the new partner, that's really good. And I'm trying my best to be a better mom, but I'm not competing with anyone because I made a decision. I no longer love him. So I agree with Doc. Once you've worked on yourself, you will remember why you left, and hopefully it will hurt less. Thank you very much for that comment. Besides, when they have someone, they stress me out less. That's good. That's a positive look for it. And teaching children age-appropriate safeguarding is a way when you are worried about the children with a partner. And the schools may be concerned if there's too many different daddies collecting children to and from school. That's true as well. And there's another comment: should you not find ways of talking to kids before introducing these children, especially when they're older? Kids are understanding if they are communicated with. It's not fair to just impose things on them, because this is, as much as we have separated or divorced, there's life after that. And at some point, that woman or man will communicate with the children's mother or father if they're lucky enough. So so I think that comment on communicating before moving on to new relationships, perhaps it's something you could touch on.
Yeah, so these friends, we need to be very practical about these things. Reality is, when there is divorce, it simply means that there is something that happened that, we have failed in terms of all attempts to communicate, around. It could be issues to do with infidelity, even the parenting itself, parenting styles and the like, could actually be causes people to divorce. So what it simply means is we cannot communicate. So it will be, hear this, expecting too much to say that your communication will improve when you have divorced. It's expecting too much. Reality is you have issues which you failed to resolve when you were together. And most likely for you to be able to resolve the issues when you are no longer together, you were expecting too much. You have different ways of seeing things, of viewing things. Your worldviews are different. And that's why perhaps you are not together. There is a problem. When that is the case, the reality is, I normally say to people, do the best that you can to become the good parent yourself. That's what it means, to be a good parent, to, co-parent, to do the best that you can under the circumstances. That's all you need to focus on. You then find ways of persuading the other, your ex, to, co-parent with you. You find ways of persuading, whether it is legally or to find a surrogate father or with a relative on the other side who can be able to talk to them. You do the best that you can to persuade, but you do the best that you can to make sure that you become the big brother or big sister. You become the good person yourself. And it's not easy. It's harder when there is divorce. Parenting is actually hard when there's no divorce. It's harder when there is divorce.
That's true. That's true. Some really useful nuggets there and some keys. I think what I'm hearing continually on is a running theme is focus on yourself, because you can only control yourself. And it resonates with something that Kath has put in the chat, that it's like a bereavement when a relationship ends. It's important to work through various stages, and you can't force someone to deal with their issues. You only have control to dealing with your own pain, disappointment, etc. And another thing that you've said is that if you were not communicating well when you were together, how do you expect to be able to communicate well when you've separated? So it becomes even harder. And there's another comment as well from Mem, who says, the best way I've seen to manage is what happens in Rome stays in Rome, and the rules in our home will be our rules. So yeah, so maybe probably following on to that a little, I think we are about to finish, but just perhaps, how do you manage the different rules, bedtimes? And, I think we've talked about that with discipline. It's similar, same principles, isn't it? And you can only control what happens in your home. You can't remote control into someone else's home. And to work on our individual, on ourselves, that's really key. I think we are here for an hour. Our hour is up. It's been really good. There's been a lot of questions, a lot of interaction, and perhaps I will just
very short hour.
Short
very
hour.
Short.
To give us maybe some parting shots or some key nuggets that you've taken away that you just want to leave everyone with.
You hear this? Mine is very short. Reality is work on yourself. Work on what is within your control. If you don't know, the nuggets to co-parent, look for them. Work on yourself and be the best that you can. You don't want to look back and regret and say, well, I could have done something, better myself. So that's all I can say.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you for taking part. It's been really insightful. And we haven't been able to do the 12-week course on co-parenting, but there is a 12-week course that Doc runs on co-parenting, which is really useful and really good. And I think I haven't attended it, but from listening today, I can imagine that a lot of it is working on yourself and helping you to work on yourself so that you can then parent better and be the better person and continue doing good, and not to give up, because you can never control another person, but you can work on what you can work on yourself. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and please look out for that. We will email you the dates for the upcoming course when we set them, because we haven't set them yet, but we will send those out, and hopefully people will be able to sign on, because it's really useful and can only make us into better parents. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the different nuggets and wisdom that we've gleaned today.
Thank you, Rumbi, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.